Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 4th meeting of the Auburn School Committee. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's begin with introductions, please. I'll go way down here to my right.
At large.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Connie Brown, Superintendent.
Faith Fontaine at large.
Ward 5.
Brian Carrier, Mayor's Rep.
All right, thank you. First things first, the approval of tonight's consent agenda, which includes the approval of tonight's agenda, the approval of the minutes from the October 21st meeting. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carrier. Thank you, Mr. Belknap. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. All right, public participation this evening. Do we have anyone who would like to participate publicly this evening? Is there anyone in the community room? Yeah? Yeah? It's just you, Mr. in here. All right, no public participation this evening. Next up, we have presentations. We have some presentations this evening. Our first one is for the new Edward Little High School building project update. Our architects from Harriman are here, so we will let them take over.
They're in the community room because
Yep.
the council chambers are considered closed because of COVID. So and they are not employees or staff, so they are in the community room.
Everything comes from there. Yes.
Okay. So Adam, you're going to run the PowerPoint?
Lisa's waiting too.
I am. So I think we're going to be seeing it in a minute once we get into it.
So just so the community is aware, the council chamber room is closed to anyone from outside the public domain. And so the community room is open. There's a podium in there. There's a microphone in there. They can hear us. We can hear them. So we have people from outside the school community here tonight to talk about the new Edward Little High School. So they're doing it they're in the building, but they're just doing it from the community room. So bear with us. Might be a little wonky.
So Lisa and Mark, take it away.
You hear me okay?
Yes, make sure you speak right into the microphone.
Excellent, yeah. I'm going to move it up just a little bit. Okay. Do we have the presentation?
We do. We can see it.
Okay, great. So we can't see it, so I'm going to do my best. Oh, I can see myself. There we go. So tonight we are here to give an update on the Edward Little High School project. Adam, if you can go to the next slide. And so the overview for tonight, we're going to look at site and phasing update. So look at the different phases of construction. We're going to provide a design update since it's been a while since we've met with all of you. We're going to go over the alternates that are included in the project, as well as review the GC pre-qualification and overall project schedule. Next slide. So site and phasing update. Since the last time we met with the school committee, the building has been relocated. This may be familiar to several folks that have been following along, but where we originally had it at referendum, it has moved due to soils. And we'll also go over the project phasing. So on the next slide, we can look at what that looks like. On this image, what you're looking at, and it's kind of hard to see on the screen because it's really small, but the green line that you see at the top or sort of middle of the page, that outline is your existing high school. The blue line at the south portion of the page, that is more of a rectangle going east to west on the page, is where the building was at the referendum. The building is now the orange or brown shape that is filled in. So you can see that it has rotated on the site. The design of the building hasn't changed, but just its location has on the site. And this was due to some additional testing that was done after referendum that showed that the soils where it was originally placed were not ideal for the building itself, but can support the parking areas. So that is why the building was rotated on the site. Next slide. So this is what we call the phasing diagram for the site. And so the first phase is the one that is labeled 1. And so where that is the south of the site. So they will fence off where the existing building is, and the contractor will take over the bottom portion of the site. This will happen in the spring of next year. And they will start to do site work and prepare for the building foundation and start to build the building down in that area. Phase 2, which is to the north of the page, is where the softball and baseball fields will go. And so they'll start to do some of the site work in that tree wooded area that is north of the existing parking lot out front of the school right now. That will take place in the summer. And then phase 3 is where we start to look at the following summer, where we start to demolish portions of the building because the new building will be done, and start creating a parking area where phase 3 is shown. And then in 2023, when the building is open, we'll have that parking area where phase 3 is shown complete. And the contractor will own the north of the site, starting to focus on the play fields and ball fields to the north. So that would be phase 4. You can go to the next slide. And so this is just an overview of what we just talked about with phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 and the time frames to which those will occur. Next slide. So design update. So what we'll go through are the floor plans and the renderings, and so what the project currently looks like. So if you can go to the next slide. The floor plans are generally the same as they were at concept. Not too much has changed. And so this is very similar to what we saw at that time. The organization of the building is the same. The location of the different programs are the same. And this would be the first floor plan. So I won't go into too much detail. I think the next floor is the second floor. Similar to, again, what we had at concept design. I think there's a couple programs. Some of the special education programs had moved within the building. They're now at the front of the school for easier access for some of their programs that happen outside of school. And then on the third floor, mostly classrooms and future expansion space, similar to what was seen at concept design. Next slide. So these are the pre-pictures, if you will. So images of what it looks like inside the building. And so this is what we call the town square. So once you get through the secure vestibule, you are into the town square that leads to the student commons beyond. And what you're seeing in that orange area is the cosmetology program. Just beyond it on the right would be the cafe that's part of the Career Technical Education Culinary Arts program. And on the left, you'll have a great connection visually and physically to the courtyard and the library right beyond that. And further in the distance is what we call the student commons or the cafeteria. Next slide. Community service salon. So this is where the career technical program for cosmetology will be. So this is where students are learning to do the different skills related to cosmetology, and also have a portion of it open to the public so they can come in and have services. Next slide. Then further down the the student commons area is the learning commons, and so this is positioned right across from the cafe. It was emphasized to have kind of a Barnes and Noble feel, where you have the connection of books and food and really the social aspect of the learning commons and the student commons come together. Next slide. And then further along is where we have the student commons itself. It's a large gathering area where students can eat during their lunch periods, as well as after lunch or before lunch. It can serve as a gathering area. You can see the projection screen on the wall on the left. Right to the left-hand side, you see some diagonal wood wall. Beyond that is the community stair where students can sit, almost like a lecture hall that doubles as a lecture space as well. Next slide. And this is turning around looking at that community stair. And you can see the courtyard to the right-hand side. So again, having visual connection to that courtyard, which is part of the wayfinding that we've used throughout the building. Next slide. And then this is at the far corner of the student commons, looking back at the serving area of the cafeteria itself. And that green square in the middle left-hand side of the image is the window into the culinary arts program. So you can see the students cooking in that program and put learning on display. Next slide. And here we have the 21st century learning nodes. So these are how we've created neighborhoods within the school. And these are different touch points that really belong to the students. So this is where they can come, they can gather with their peers or their teachers, have small group learning, and it's adjacent to administrators so that they can get help or foster those relationships with the adults in the building. Next slide. And then this is looking back the other direction, same space, and there's one of these at each corner of the building, so creating 6 different learning communities in the classroom wing. Next slide. And then the Performing Arts Center. So this is a view of the Performing Arts Center on the main level, looking at the stage. You can see this is the back of the seats, looking towards the stage, and we have several images of this space, which really came together quite nicely, and it will be a great asset to the community. Next slide. And this is just a straight-on view of the stage itself. Next slide. And a view from the balcony looking towards the stage. Next slide. And then this is also from the balcony, at the rear of the balcony, looking towards the stage. Next slide. And from the stage, looking back to the audience. Next slide. And so from here, I'm going to pass it over to Mark Lee to go over alternate.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. So the slide here that, thank you, Adam, for advancing to this point. So in the time from when we last provided an update to all of you to now, there's been a lot of work on our part to build the systems that support all those pretty pictures that we looked at. And so it's a fairly complex building of about 280,000 square feet. So it takes quite a bit of effort to get all that work integrated into contract documents that we can put out to contractors to bid from. And we'll go over the schedule of that in a moment. But one of the things that we need to do as we prepare for this bidding is ensure that we have a strategy to deliver the project on budget. And so one of the ways we do that is by identifying features that we separate the price out from the base price of the project. And so we call those items that we pull out for separate pricing an alternate. And so we hope that the market forces are in our favor and we're able to award the entire design as it's been conceived on the day that we open all the bids. And we have a bid contingency that assists us in doing that. But we also have to have a strategy that we can have additional pieces that we could either subtract or add on to the project in order to be able to ensure that we're on budget. And so that is what this is. It's a list of alternates. And we like to think of it as almost if you went out to eat and had an entree, your entree is your main meal that you pay the base price for. And the alternates are additional pieces if you wanted a salad or dessert or something like that. So that's one way of thinking what an alternate is. And so I'll do my best to identify the list of alternates from the screen that I'm seeing them here. But the first one is identified, and these are no particular priority. And one of our steps will be to look at the priority with both the building committee and as a recommendation to the school board. But the first one is the second turf field. And so in the base bid, we have the primary stadium turf field. And then there's a second turf field that's right now, the funding for that is partially in this alternate category. So that's what alternate 1 is. Alternate 2, I'm going to have to maybe rely on Lisa to even tell me what those are as she's looking. Okay, yes, we have a series. We have 2 doors in the building that are commercially known as a WON door, W-O-N door. And what they do is, in the event of a lockdown, they close off a section of the building. And so those are the second item that's identified as alternate number 2. Alternate number 3, the courtyard landscaping and hardscaping, and that is a lot of the what we did is in conceiving of the design of the courtyard, we thought this could be not only a great place to let light into the interior of the building and connect different parts of the building through this courtyard, but also we thought it would be a great space to have patio that comes off of the student commons, as well as off of there's one off of the learning commons. And in addition to that, we also have outdoor classrooms in it, and that is all landscaped with both hardscape and landscape elements. So again, that's an additional piece that we have broken out as an alternate. And then 4 is the theater system. And so those lovely, beautiful images of the 1,200-seat theater, what we've done is provided a full complement of technical systems for the production inside of the theater itself. And what the alternate is for an addition beyond the sort of basic system. So we have a complement of basic theatrical lighting, for instance, in this theater. And the alternate has an additional amount of lights that would be purchased as part of that. Same thing with the sound system. It sort of provides a basic sound system as the base part of the project, and then there's an enhancement to the sound system as part of the alternate. In addition to the main stadium that we have done, which we have site lighting and grandstands for, we also have shown site lighting for additional athletic fields, and so that includes the baseball complex, baseball field, and there's an overlay field on that. And it also includes lighting for the tennis courts. And so those 2 areas are carried as an alternate for that pricing. The base site lighting for the athletic fields is in the football stadium complex. There's an outbuilding or a storage building that's shown to house a lot of equipment that's required to maintain and store additional equipment related to the athletic fields. And so that's in a outbuilding that is broken out as a separate alternate as well. And in the areas of the softball and baseball fields, we have dugouts that are shown that are again carried as an alternate. In the base bid, we have the grandstands for the stadium complex, but the dugouts themselves for as I identified, the 2 fields, the softball and baseball, are in that alternate. In the classroom areas, we've carried the base bid is sort of a standard tile that we use. It's a vinyl tile that we use in most school constructions. You'll see it. What we've done is there's an enhanced flooring material, rubber flooring, that we've used as it's a little softer acoustically, and it's more durable and easier to maintain. And so that is a rubber floor tile that's an alternate carried as well. So the majority of the building is, and certainly at its base, is a brick base or brick building, and that one of the great features is that brick is produced right here in Auburn, Maine. So this is wonderful that we have this resource here. But in addition to the brick that we're using predominantly throughout the building, there's also a siding that goes above the brick in some of the 3-story areas of the building, and also in the auditorium overbuild. And so what we have shown on our base bid is that that's a metal siding that goes above the brick. And the alternate identifies that as a cementitious siding material that's a little nicer in appearance than the metal, but relatively the same in terms of longevity of the material. One of the things that we did to try to enhance the appearance on the interior, make it less institutional, is the entrance doors to the classrooms are done with an aluminum entrance system as an alternate. The basic is the sort of standard metal frame that we use commercially in a lot of buildings, but there's an upgrade to that with an aluminum system. So it's an enhancement that makes the building feel a little bit elevated, a little nicer, a little less commercial or institutional. one of the pictures that Lisa demonstrated were those classroom communities. And so one of the things we did in those is again, try to create an image that feels warm and welcoming, and we use a wood ceiling from those images, and that's an alternate. So the basic cost of the building is going to be a standard lay-in or tile ceiling, acoustic tile ceiling, but we enhanced it with this alternate to do the wood ceilings. The wood ceilings are really, really nice, but they do carry a cost to them, so we carried that as an alternate. The next item was a roof protection board, which what we do in a built-up roof now, we have the roof deck, which is this structural element that supports the roof from the framing members. And then on top of that, we put the insulation. And then on top of that, we put oftentimes a protection board. And that protection board is sort of a sacrificial layer. And then we put the adhered roofing membrane on top of that. So the idea is that in 20 to 25 years, when you need to replace the roof, you tear off the adhered membrane, you leave all the insulation. And so that's what that protection board does. It's just a half-inch sacrificial layer. Before we used to design them with just the adhered, and most buildings are still done with an adhered membrane on top of the insulation. So the base bit is just that adhered roof membrane on top of the insulation. The enhancement or the alternate is with that protection board on it to make it easier to replace the roof in 25 years or so. And throughout the building, we have a number of smaller skylights that let natural light into the building. In particular areas, not in the classroom where we have access to a lot more natural light, but in the other areas of the building where we have some corridors that are more internal into the central elements around the athletic areas of the building and the theater. And so to lighten those corridors, we had a series of skylights, and those skylights are an alternate. So the base bit is that we just have a ceiling. The alternate is that we have a series of skylights that let in more natural light. The next item is the greenhouse, and I think we're at 14, is that correct? Yeah, item alternate 14 is the greenhouse, and so we learned it's at the various points in our discussions with the science program and looking at the site that an instrumental portion of that was the greenhouse. And so as Billy Hunter can attest, it was not constructed in such a way that relocating it was feasible or possible. And so it recently, I think, found its demise. But the alternate is to replace it with a brand new greenhouse. And the last one is sunshades, and those are devices that go on the outside of the building on the windows that cut down on the high angle sun in the months from around May to September, October, where they cut off the greatest extent of light and heat gain into the building. And so those cut down on glare and heat gain. And so those are the alternate number 15. So as I said, those alternates are a strategy that we use at the time that we're bidding the project to be able to evaluate how to award it if pricing comes in more than we anticipate and we have to reduce some of the scope. And by having these things thought forward ahead of time, we actually have the competition for those prices. And so every contractor that bids on it has to come up with a competitive price for each of those alternates. So that's part of that strategy that we use. Next, please. So the next piece we're getting into is part that we're dealing with right now. So now that we started with the design and we worked hard on that, and then we came up with the construction documents that we get ready to deliver to the contractors. The next piece of this is how we actually go through the process of getting a contractor on board and selecting a contractor. And so next slide. So the first thing we have to do is we send out a solicitation for the general contractor qualifications or pre-qualifications. And so any contractor or general contractor that's interested in bidding on the project sends in their interest in doing so in their qualifications. Those are evaluated by the Department of Education, and they're in that process right now. In fact, they're almost through the completed process of that, because there has to be allowed enough time for a contractor who may not have been seen as qualified to be able to appeal that. And so again, we're almost done that process where we'll have a list of contractors that are qualified to bid on the project. the good news is we had a lot of interest in this project this time around, and so I want to say we had at least 8 contractors submit qualifications, and so that was encouraging, and so we're thinking that that's going to help tremendously as we go through the bid process. And so that advertising occurred in October. They reviewed them, and they notified the applicants, or we were just about to notify the applicants of that decision on whether they're qualified or not. The next piece that we get into is actually advertising for the actual bid. So we will put out in newspapers and in the state website, the project is available for contractors to bid on, and so that's notification not only to the general contractors that are qualified, but also to subcontractors that are interested in bidding it. And so we'll have a series of we'll have a meeting with all the interested contractors to come walk the site and learn about the project, and then we will distribute the drawings to those contractors that are interested in bidding on it. And so we'll send the documents out on the 15th, and that's after the approval by the state, and we'll show that in a minute here. But that December 15th is our sort of date that we say, here are the drawings that are available for contractors to review and bid on. The walkthrough with contractors occurs on December 19th. We trust that's going to be a nice warm day in the middle of December here, but we'll see. And then the bids are due from the contractors on February 9th. And so that is when we will receive the pricing and open that up in a public bid opening. Next slide. So this shows us at the tail end of that very long chart that I think we've all witnessed from the very beginning when you selected the architect, and we went through a long process of evaluating sites and determining if the existing building was worth saving or not, and developing a concept design and getting that approved, and then the public vote on that, and then going through the series of designs that we've done here since the referendum. Finally now getting to this point in the schedule where we're really excited. We're about ready to go out and solicit the bids from the contractors. So, and so that is what's occurring right now in the winter of this year. What will then happen is a pricing. We'll get pricing and confirm the budget in the February timeframe. Get contracts signed with the contractor, and then as Lisa had shown in the phasing diagram, they'll mobilize and they'll start construction in the spring of 2021. And so with that, I think that may be our last slide.
One more.
One more. And so, and again, my eyesight isn't enough to pick that up, but part of the next steps also, as I mentioned, there has to be an approval of the budget that we receive from the Department of Education prior to us awarding that contract. And that occurs in February, but the budget itself right now is we have to get approved to go to bid, and so as I said, we're going to distribute the bids on the 19th, and so prior to that we have we meet with a subcommittee of the state board. That meeting is on November 20th. Then we meet, the state board formally approves us to be able to go to bid. That occurs on December 9th. Oh, 15th, I'm sorry. There we go. That's that eyesight that's struggling there a little, but okay. So, so we're, again, as I said, we're really excited to finally be at this point in it. It's pretty exciting to think of those of you who have been involved in supporting a new facility for Edward Little for countless years, and we're inching ever so close to really being able to put shovels in the ground. So with that, thank you very much, and I don't know if there are questions or how we want to handle that, Karen.
Sure. Any questions for either Mark or Lisa this evening from the school committee? Oh, seeing none. Thank you so much, Mark and Lisa. We appreciate you coming in tonight and updating not only us, but also the general public as well. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. You too. All right, next on our agenda, the next presentation involves the Auburn School Department Nutrition Program. So Chris Piercy came. Thank you for coming tonight, Chris. I have just a moment. I'm going to read a statement, and then I will present Chris with a plaque, and I think we're going to take a picture as well. So, members of the Auburn community, it's my honor to announce that the Auburn School Department Nutrition Program has been chosen as one of the Spirit of America Foundation tribute winners for its outstanding community service. Director Chris Piercy, who is here with us tonight, nominated the program and had this to say. Auburn School Department Nutrition Program, even before COVID-19, had a solid reputation for serving nutritious, affordable, and delicious meals to thousands of students each and every day. Amidst the pandemic, the nutrition program has gone into overdrive, packing countless meals to go to feed students outside the classroom. Usually in the summer, there's 4 people who are staff members, but this year you had 10 plus staff members helping out with it. The Spirit of America Foundation is located in Augusta and encourages volunteerism and community service. The Maine's 2020 Spirit of America tribute winners are Auburn School Department Nutrition Program, Fort Kent Community High School Carnival Food Drive, Gardner Area High School Thanksgiving Food Drive, Halldale Key Club, Mid-Coast Community Alliance, Oak Hill High School Legislative Assembly, Barbara Ray from the Fayette School District, Ryan Reed from RSU 18, RSU 3 School Nutrition Program, West Bath School, Better World Project, and William Cone School Have a Heart for Hunger Food Drive. So please join me in congratulating the Auburn School Department Nutrition Program. Exemplary service. Thank you. We're both like instead, right? All right, everyone. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Superintendent's Report.
Thank you very much. And I'll apologize in advance, it's long. And I'll try to get through most of this as quickly as I can. Some of these are kind of short. The first is that November is National Education Month, and it is our time to celebrate the good work that goes on in our schools, our educators, and the families that make our students thrive. So November is set aside for that. The second is just a heads up for the November 18th meeting. It looks like there will be only 2 items on that agenda. Karen's going to talk a little bit about one of them, and the other one will be budget. And we would like to, when I say we, I'm talking Adam and Connie and some other folks, to spend some time with you discussing the parameters for the 21-22 budget. We'd like to share with you the EDU 279 and how it works and how it's figured out. And we'd like to share with you some fixed costs that we know we have going into the 21-22 year, and have some dialogue. So that's the first half, and then Karen's going to talk about the second half of that. And then just as an FYI, those are really the only 2 items that we're hoping will be on the agenda that night. And so things like policies and other ordinary new and old business will be moved to the December 2nd meeting. So you have some time to really spend dialoguing about that budget. So that's that. Staffing, I wanted to give you a sense of where we are with some of our staffing needs. Unfortunately, we do have quite a few unfilled positions at this point. We have 17 open ed tech positions as of today, and we have a number of positions in special education, including a school psychologist, speech pathologist, 2 special education teachers. We have a teacher interventionist position. We have several support staff positions, including a secretary at ELHS. And if I wouldn't mind, Scott, can you just share briefly our hiring experience with that position? I think it's important for the school committee to know.
Yeah, so this position's been open from the very beginning of the school year. So we've had multiple rounds of interviews. We've interviewed some excellent candidates who were eager to join our staff. They were great fits spoke very well of wanting to be part of the Auburn School Department, wanting to be part of every little high school. Each one of them came to us outside, from the outside world, hadn't been in the education world, but still super solid matches. And once they went through the benefit package and ultimately looked at what the salary was, there was no way for that to actually work for them. It actually, because it would be put on the scale of step 0 to 3, it works out to about $13.72, $76 an hour, and that just wasn't going to work for them. So we continue to have the open position, and hopefully we will help find a really solid match for them in terms of income. But that has been the greatest stumbling barrier for us in this process.
Thanks, Scott. So some of the other positions that are open include substitutes, and that would be things such as bus spares, folks to work as substitutes in our kitchens. Our long-term substitutes and just regular classroom substitutes are another area of shortage for us. Tutors and van drivers and spares. That gives you a sense of the positions that we are trying to fill. We are actively looking for those folks. We continue to advertise, but the pool of applicants just isn't there. And in some cases, there are no applicants for those positions. The next item is I had a great tour of the Auburn Library. It is gorgeous. You are so lucky to have such a gem in your community. I really enjoyed meeting and talking with the staff and going around, and I came away with a library card. So I'm very pleased with that. Some of you know that I'm a voracious reader, and having a library where I can borrow books locally is a really big deal to me. A couple of the next items, I'm going to share the floor with some speakers. At the last school committee meeting, I think Mr. Belknap had asked about winter sports. And Todd, if you could come and give us a brief update of where we are at this very minute, because it seems to change by minute.
Afternoon.
So I don't have a lot of solid information for you. What I can share with you is the Maine Principals Association met with the Governor's Office, DHHS, CDC, DOE on October 23rd. And I think many of you probably saw that there was a delay in winter sports. So we typically would be gearing up for a November 16th start. Our girls' ice hockey would have started Monday night, but that was delayed as well. So we're unfortunately in another one of those delay situations. And just a couple of, so you kind of have a scenario of what they're thinking about or what they're looking at is, I think it's, the big issue is that there's a difference right now between what the educational-based athletics through the Principals Association regulations are and what our community sports regulations are. And I think our leaders through the Governor's Office are aware of those discrepancies and are really working to try to bridge that gap and bring those together. The primary issue, as I see it for winter athletics, is the fact that almost all of our sports, with the exception of skiing, are done inside. And to bring the student athletes inside, the DOE has already had some mandates about physical education and needing to be 14 feet apart, wearing a mask, and that certainly isn't going to work in an ice hockey game or a basketball or a wrestling match, those things. One of the things that the MPA is working through with the Athletics Association is to loosen some of those standards that, yes, the physical education standards are high and somewhat stringent, but the physical education class is mandatory. It's part of their educational process, where the athletics are voluntary. And I think I shared with you in the fall, we did develop a COVID-19 release form that our student athletes sign and parents would sign as well. So that's one of the things they're looking for. My understanding is that there's a meeting sometime this week. I heard it was Friday. Other people are hearing that it's actually tomorrow. But the three big items on the agenda are trying to bring the sport-specific risk specifically for some of the team sports, basketball and ice hockey, from the moderate risk of level 3 to a level 4. In the community sports center, level 3, you could practice and you could have inter-squad scrimmages, but you could not participate against other teams or other schools. So the level 4 allows you to do the regional schedules, which you saw our field hockey and our soccer team do this fall. So that's one of the things they're looking for. The next piece is they're looking at timing to say, the New Hampshire model is something that they're really intrigued with, that perhaps we would start practices the first week in December. Not practice necessarily 5 days a week, but 3 to 4 days a week in through the holidays, and then start our games the first week in January. They're still trying to look like what the contest's going to look like. And for instance, limiting the people that can be in the lane on a free throw, so that you don't have bodies crashing into each other on free throws. Referee, there'll be no more jump balls, so the referee isn't touching the ball. The visiting team's going to start with the basketball. Things like that to try to limit contact spot. One of the things that's happened recently is the governor's order, no more than 50 people indoors. So really, it's placed a strong emphasis on getting our live streaming going, because it's going to be very difficult to have 2 teams, officials, game personnel, and to have any fans at all. So one of the things we've worked hard with Dave Strom and Peter Robinson and Billy Hunter's crew is that we're working with the Federation, who's going to give us, they call them pixel-lock cameras, and they're actually motion activated. And we hope to do some of the self-install work, and those cameras will actually be free to the district. So we're hopefully going to sign that contract tomorrow and get those in so that we can start that. Our hockey people know they have a live streaming system at the hockey rinks live barn, which will be an asset. So that's all I really know. We really hope to hear more end of this week, beginning of next week. I know our kids at our boys' soccer game last night, the kids have already moved on to the winter sports. Mr. Sampson, when can we start practice? When are we going to start? Who's the new coach for this sport? So they're already thinking about it. They're wanting it. So hopefully we're going to have some information that we can get going early December.
Is the hesitation to kind of commit to this because of the increased cases of COVID in the state? Is that playing a role in this?
Well, I don't believe it was on October 23rd, but hearing the numbers to continue to go up, I think it is a concern for sure.
So, I'm sorry, Ms. Can I just...
Middle school,
Right into the microphone.
oh, sorry. Can we make an effort for middle school sports if it's the MPA? I don't think they're governed by the MPA, but I've had 3 parents speak to me emphatically. Can we please, please, please? They're even willing to have it and not see their kid play. So I read that.
Yeah, so one of the great things that has happened at AMS this year is we brought on Anthony Timberman, one of our educators. He's going to be the assistant AD at the middle school, and he's got a big dry erase board in his room, and he's got plans going right now for that. The new league that we joined this fall has been pretty lockstep with what the MPA has said, and that's kind of what dissolved our middle school fall seasons. So I think we could have some flexibility if we used the MPA model and did some geographical games where we could play a Poland, a Grey New Gloucester, a St. Dom's, some of those things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one more thing on my report. Would you like to touch on the senior game for the football team?
Yes.
Saturday?
So incredible hard work from Mr. Hunter and his crew. We've got the new press box in place at Walton Field. We're getting the sound system up to speed, scoreboard. Field's been mowed, will be painted, and Saturday, November 7th, we're going to play a JV 7-on-7 football game at 11 a.m., and then we're going to play varsity at 12:30. And right before the varsity game, we'll recognize our 11 seniors and their families. And everybody's excited to have the voice of the Red Eddies, Bim Gibson, on site for a Red Eddie first down, as he's become famous for. So that's taking place this Saturday. So I appreciate everybody's effort to make that happen for our kids.
Thank you. Okay. I do. I have a couple other things. One that's not on my report, but it just happened, and I want to share this with you. If you wouldn't that way. And if I could ask Shelley to come on up. The Department of Ed announced to the superintendents in a rather veiled way that they would be changing the state assessment system. And they did so just about a week ago, right, Michelle, when they announced that there would be changes. And then last Friday, they announced that the information was no longer embargoed, there would be changes. And I asked Shelley if she would put together a short memorandum to tell us what we know at this point about those changes. So Shelley, if you would, please.
Sure. So as Connie said, last Friday an email went out from the DOE to superintendents and principals and district assessment coordinators, which is one of the roles I serve here in the school department, to explain that, as you'll remember, last spring, the DOE secured a waiver from the state assessment, the spring state assessment, because of school closures. That is not an option this year, but the DOE has decided to take a look at their assessment system, and they've decided to end their contract with the company that's been providing the MEA, well, Empower Me, but MEA as you would know it, and also eliminate the SAT for the high school. And the plan is to create a system that is a combination of what we in education call formative assessment, which is the assessment that you do as students are learning and you use the results to change what you do in your classroom instructionally. And they are still required to have some sort of end of year summative spring assessment. And there's lots of talk about what that might be, but the reasons that were given were some of the feedback they've received for quite a few years now is that the data that we get from the state assessment comes in the next school year, and it makes it very hard for that to be data that we can use to inform our instruction in the classroom. And they also really felt like going with the summative assessment that we've had right along would not give an accurate, full data set given the conditions that schools are working under this year and the closure last year. So they've taken this as an opportunity to rethink assessment, and that's all I know at this point in time.
They want to eliminate the SAT?
As the required assessment for accountability, it will still be there the way it used to be, which is students who choose to take the SAT take it on a Saturday.
Okay.
That it's not going away as an assessment, it's going away as the assessment for 11th grade for state accountability.
So juniors who want to take it this fall, they are still eligible to take it this fall?
They'll be the regular, I think they offer it more than once in the year on Saturdays, and we've always coordinated that and been a test site, and we still will be, depending on what the situations are. So that doesn't go away. Okay. It just goes away as a school day assessment for the purpose of state accountability.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Shelley? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks, Shelley. So the last two items under my report are both going to fall to Michelle. One is student truancy, and the second is an update regarding the reentry steering committee. Thanks, Michelle.
So take them in that order then. So we have, according to the statute, the school committee needs to be made aware when we have cases of truancy. And currently we have 2 cases of truancy, or 2 cases involving students who have been determined to be truant. In this case means that students have been out of school for a certain number of days or a certain number of continuous days. And so that has gone through a process prior to where we are today that involves notifications, multiple notifications to parents, meetings, plans that are developed to address and improve the attendance. It also includes a meeting with me, with the administrator of the school, and as appropriate, the district attorney. So that has all taken place prior to today. If there's no improvement at this point, the students, those cases will be referred to law enforcement, to the Department of Health and Human Services. So I'm making you aware that we have 2 cases of truancy in our school.
Are these, so do we know if these are, what's our average on a year for truant students? What do we average about every year? That would take to this level.
Take to this level at this point? We probably have about 5 or 6.
So,
Yeah.
is student truancy taken into account with remote learning as well as in-person learning? Like, you know, for instance, a child may be on Zoom one day, but then isn't on Zoom for the rest of the week, or might be on Zoom but is not doing his homework, or vice versa. Is that taken into account with truancy as well?
Students who are participating in the remote educational program this year are accountable to the attendance laws. And so yes, truancy, they are held accountable to the truancy laws.
And hybrid as well, or is
Yes,
it just for
in
remote?
person. Any student who is enrolled in our school department.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Michelle on this? Thank you.
So, yes, a report on the Reentry Steering Committee and the work that has been done this fall. So this fall, the Steering Committee has continued to meet. They monitoring the implementation of the reentry plan to date and discussing the move to increase in-person learning. So those have been the focus areas for the committee throughout the fall. Again, some of the guiding pieces that we talked about way back in July center around and continue to center around safety and maximizing learning and making sure that that learning is promoting the student achievement that we're headed for. So most recently we've met and we've been talking about a more focused way around that in-person learning, asking questions of what would we look at to make determinations about increasing the amount of time, and then what would it look like to increase the amount of time for in-person learning. Those are 2 of the guiding questions. Just to give you a sense of some of the things that were talked about at the most recent meeting, the committee was looking at things like we would be looking at the current infection and transmission rate. We'd be looking at the DOE county designation that comes out now every Friday. Continue to look at the DOE guidelines and the CDC recommendations and how that fits in with our reentry plan, and are there any adjustments that would need to be made in that as well. And then more locally, how are cases progressing in our schools? So those were all things that were identified as what we should be looking at and are looking at. While maintaining stability, and there's this idea of trying to maintain stability to the degree that's possible in the educational program that we're providing. And right now that is getting trickier. That sounded differently in October than it is sounding right now. But definitely that stability, so there's not a lot of disruption to learning as we move toward more in-person. So through that, what were some of the pieces that were missing for us? What were some of the what's some of the information that we feel we need as the reentry committee to move forward? Well, we need feedback. We need, again, as we talked about in the summer, feedback. How are things going, and what is working? What things do we need to continue to look at adjusting, as well as how are parents, staff, students feeling about coming back in and increasing that time. So you saw in your packet a link to the surveys that have gone out at this point to families, to staff, and to students. So principals will be collecting that information, and we'll use it as the steering committee to guide us. It also came up that looking at learning from other districts who are moving in this direction or have already moved in this direction is an important part. So we've already begun to reach out. An example is Chris Piercy has reached out to talk about the food services programs and how they're looking around lunch with the guidelines around 6 feet for eating. So talking to those school districts who have done this or are doing this currently or getting ready to thinking about doing it and what are their, so that's just, we're doing that currently, and we'll continue to talk to other districts. And then, of course, we need to hear from you and what your thoughts and considerations are in moving forward. So that's where we're at. That's what the reentry committee has been working on, and I certainly welcome any questions or any clarifications.
Any questions for Michelle at this point? Michelle, I'm just gonna kind of jump in here. One of my questions is around the survey. Is the only way to take the survey online, or is there an opportunity to take it in some type of a paper form in case we don't have all families that can take access to it? We've done this before, right? How are we reaching all families, all households who may not have access to internet? Has it been translated for our ELL families? And then I can appreciate that at the beginning of the survey when I first popped it open, and I did hear from another school committee member as well, that I appreciate that the piece where you didn't have to put your email on there that was required needed to be, because I know that I heard from a few families as well as a few other school committee members, heard from families as well, that they would love to give, maybe some feedback that they, not to be mean or malicious, but just to make sure that their feedback is given in an anonymous way, that they don't feel, their family singled out. And I'm not saying any retribution's coming, but just the opportunity to share anonymously would have been some didn't take it because they couldn't share anonymously. I understand now that that's been changed. Is that correct?
Adjustment was made. That's something that we did in the summer. You'll remember we asked for the identifiable information. So I think when we were setting this up, it followed the same format. That was a quick fix. So people should know. I'm glad you brought that up, that adjustment was made.
Okay, thank you for that. The other piece that I had a tricky time when I filled it out, and this is just feedback on the survey, when I filled it out, the situation that my student is in, my child is in, it was tricky for me to comment on how some of the other situations are going because I have no experience with those. I don't know how those situations are going, but I couldn't submit it without answering all questions. So, and I don't mind saying, so for instance, my son is remote only, but I couldn't answer how in-person learning was going. It wouldn't let me, and I didn't know, I want to speak from my experience, not from what I'm hearing from other people's experiences. So I just couldn't, I don't know how in-person learning is going. It's based on my thoughts.
So I get that feedback from a teacher whose student said the same thing. So I went in, I'll double check the parent one, but I know that earlier today I went in and removed the required component on that first question so that if somebody was remote only, they wouldn't have to answer about in person. We were thinking about wanting to make sure people answered, and so I didn't even think of that when I created the question, but I have gone in and turned it off.
Could we add a not applicable button?
Harder to do once the survey's out, because it requires you to restructure the survey to add something to that list, and then that makes all the data you've already collected. So the easiest thing to do is to just make it not required. So that's what I've done.
Okay.
But I will double check the parent one. Because I'm not sure
Okay.
if
Are we sending a robocall out as well? I know that sometimes you get a robocall that, a survey's been sent to you.
We did talk about that.
Okay.
Especially if you're changing it to anonymously, to it being anonymous, it would be good to let people who do want to do this anonymously, let them know that now they can. So that would be.
All of our communications, including our surveys, as we talked about this summer, are translated.
Okay. Great, thank you. Just wanted some confirmation on that. And the plan is to share those survey results on December 2nd? Is
Yes.
that the plan? Okay.
I also wanted to say that I appreciate on the survey when it says, how comfortable would you be sending your child full-time if we could offer and meet the CDC guidelines? That if is huge, and I appreciate that because I don't want people to think that we are automatically going to do this. I want to make sure that I'm glad that you put that in there to know that we have to follow certain guidelines before we can make this a reality. So I appreciate that.
And I think if we were to do, a quick rip around, I don't know that many of us have, I'm not sure, if we can follow safety protocols, if we can follow what the updated CDC guidelines, if our numbers are, if we're still in the green, our county's still in the green. I think if I were to ask at this moment with just, if all of those pieces are in place, if we can then offer as much and maximize in-person learning, I think you're going to see from the majority of this school committee that we want to maximize and get kids back to the extent that we can. If I'm misspeaking, step in and correct me, but I would say the majority of us are really in favor of the best place for these kids to be is in school. And I don't hear anyone.
No, I agree. I just, as long
Following
as it's
everything,
safe and as long as we're going by the CDC guidelines, the DOE, and we're following that, the recent uptick in cases is a bit alarming.
Sure, yeah.
We're getting, hundreds of cases every day. ICUs are starting to, see patients. Hospitals are seeing patients. So this is, it is concerning. But if all the guidelines are met and it is safe, then I have
If. Yeah, lots of ifs. Mr. Simpson, go ahead.
I wanted to echo something Karen said about amending the survey so that parents and students had that same opportunity to remain anonymous as the teachers and staff had, because, and I had, unbeknownst to your work, last week I reached out to Karen about, can we put this on the agenda, because I was getting a lot of feedback, and my mantra is talk to your teacher, talk to your principal. And I think my terminology was a heightened ambivalence for people to do that they were really concerned that they're going to be labeled, with this and that. So I'm very appreciative. It was done quickly. I did mine earlier today. And the second, completely unrelated, it was distressing just now to hear you, Karen, say for the families that don't have internet connection. Because I thought we had every parent we knew for a fact that they did. So it woke me up when you said that.
Right.
We do.
They should. We're not hearing from anyone that they don't, but I'm just saying people don't always access that email. From personal experience, they've got email, but they don't actually click onto it. So, yeah. That's from families I work with in my own school district, so they got it. Anyone else have any questions right now?
and I'm glad you're doing the survey because I've been getting a lot of parents coming to me, not particularly happy with the remote aspect of education. They're very concerned that their child isn't really getting what they need. I think especially I'm hearing a lot from the elementary aspect of schools, and they're just finding it really difficult and they're finding that they're getting a lot of work thrown at them. And some of them feel maybe it's to compensate for what happened in the spring, because it was kind of haywire, and which I'm not to blame anybody because it was crazy. But they feel that they're getting a lot of work, but they're not getting the tutelage to do that work. So they're getting this work, and the kids don't know what to do. It's just, it's quantity and not quality. And so that's the concern I'm getting from a lot of parents. So I appreciate this survey, and I'm hoping that a lot of those parents who spoke to me will put their concerns on here. And anonymously, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and encourage them to reach out to their teachers too, their
Yes,
children's teachers.
and which I
Absolutely.
have.
Good, so it sounds like the timing is good
Yes.
from what you folks are hearing.
Perfect. Well, I think in that, communities around, Faith shared with us 2 weeks ago that Freeport was opening back up. Lisbon's been 5 days a week since the get-go. They're just all these communities, and so it's sort of like, what can we do to offer educational opportunities, increase educational opportunities, more, get them in there. All right, thank you, Michelle. Unless there's any other questions? All right, thank you, Michelle.
Good for me.
All right, moving on, chairperson's report. So I'm going to start off this evening with the report by congratulating, and please let me know if I am actually butchering this poor woman's name. We have a new Ward 1 rep to welcome to the school committee by the name of Corin McWigan. Corin McWigan. So she will be joining us. She needs to do her punctuary duties and go downstairs, get sworn in, and so we have another one to add to the committee coming up. So congratulations, Corin. Hopefully by next meeting she will be joining us. All right, City of Auburn. Let's move on to the next one. City of Auburn, the charter. Some of you know the charter's up for review this year, or parts of the charter. I'm sorry, I don't. And 100%, but I know that they are reviewing the charter this year. And so there are 2 articles that have a specific mention of the Auburn School Committee, which is Article 4 and Article 8. Article 4 is specifically the school committee, and Article 8 is the financial management of the budgets of the fiscal year, but there are pieces of that have to do with the school committee finances. 8.10, 11, and 16. So what we need to do, members of the Auburn School Committee, and we'll talk about this more, which is what Dr. Brown was referring to on the November 18th meeting. That meeting will be devoted primarily to the budget and also to the review of those 2 charter pieces. So you have them, they were part of your onboarding packet to review, go over suggestions, conversations, questions, whatever it is, particular feedback. So we'll have a very much more in-depth conversation around that coming up on November 18th, in addition to budget. We also have, because it all comes to November 30th, on November 30th, the City Council will be reviewing Articles 4 and 8. So they will have our conversation, our feedback, our suggestions, our questions, our ahas, our notes, quotes, and all that good stuff coming before them on November 30th. And the last piece of my report this evening is a report out on the Maine School Board Association Delegate Assembly, the results of that. This was as you recall, it was, I was the delegate nominated. Thank you all so much for that. It was a approximately 6.5 hour Zoom meeting that started at 3:30 last Friday, and after 6 hours, Dave Simpson, after 6 hours, and we did. We tried to nominate you, Dan.
I don't want to miss another meeting, do you?
No. So, all joking aside, after 6.5 hours of conversation, you should know that all 4 of the proposed resolutions were passed. And that was attended by, I want to say there were almost 100 members of school boards that were voting. So you can just imagine being done by Zoom, motions being made, amendments to motions being made, motions to table, moving questions. It was quite the thing to witness, experience, and live through. So the results are all 4 of them have passed.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, yes. I will pass the baton on to someone else next year, though. All right, city council update, unless anyone has any questions about that. Being none. All right, city council update, Mr. Carrier.
Mimicking what Karen said, please take a couple minutes to look at the charter. The city council is going at this in a very in-depth sort of way, looking at things that have fallen by the wayside in the past, things that we've not kept up on, and the fact that we need to get back to the charter in exactly how we do our business. Not so much in so far as the upper part of it, because that stays fairly steady, but definitely under Article 8. There are going to be some changes that we're going to be discussing, and the school committee has to put their 2 cents worth in to this. I mean, it will fall to the council to vote, but we're looking at a greater financial control of what we're doing, recording, following up on. In the past, we've just sort of let things slide by. Oh, it's, that department, it's, it's the school committee, it's this, it's that. And we're not going to be doing that anymore. We're going to be looking at purchases, we're looking at budget, we're looking at all items. So really take a look at it, read it. If you've got some suggestions, please make sure that you make them, because, we're going to be looking at this very closely. The second part of that is I was discussing with Councilor McLeod in regards to technology, what you were just talking about with the fact that connectability and the kids in the school that still may or may not have internet connectability. I'm a little disappointed in myself and maybe us that, and actually the state in trying to hurry us into spending that money. The street lights that the city has installed all over the city, the new ones, have Wi-Fi capability. And with the use of those funds, which, their rule was we had to have it in hand. Well, the street lights are in hand, and we could have done a lot as far as internet connectability with use of those funds. So I'd like to just sort of step back and have some time to talk, when we come to these items, so that we can find out that there may be other options for us that, help us out more in the future. Be willing to take suggestions from all of you, but sometimes we get rushed into doing stuff and sort of overlook the low-hanging fruit. So that's my report.
No idea. The street lights in our city have Wi-Fi capability. I don't know that anyone in this.
I knew that was a thought. I didn't know it was a reality, but I knew it was a thought.
According to Councilor McLeod, roughly about $1 million, the whole system could have been connected for everywhere what they've installed, and they've installed them just about everywhere in the city at this point.
That's where, what you're unearthing an issue, I think, that school committee, city council has had history of. We kind of work separately, and I know that when we started, we kind of came on, we wanted to make it a joint effort. And so, yeah, something like that, like knowing that, working together in that way.
Yeah, that would have been great if it had been.
Would be that we would save a lot of money on either side, I think.
Well, it's not, I get, as I said, I sort of blame myself, but the state has given us such an unrealistic expectation, to be able to have to order something and actually have it in hand within a very short time period, doesn't do a service to the Department of Education and to the local school boards being able to use that money wisely. And I hope that in the future, should there be any other future money, I won't be holding my breath, but should there be any other future money, that they'll actually give us some guidelines that would allow us to take a look at what suits the need of the local school districts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for making us all aware of that as well. All right, other committee reports. Finance, Finance Committee?
We're going to be meeting here in the future.
Okay.
Next week.
That's a future.
Next week. Policy Subcommittee. We have some policies.
You know, meet every other week, pretty much.
Okay.
Next.
Curriculum Subcommittee, I met with Shelley, and let me find my notes on meeting with Shelley. Meeting with Shelley, part of the, here it is, curriculum meeting with Shelley, which you wouldn't think I misplaced this, it just happened not that long ago. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so with some of the relief money, we have been able to purchase classroom libraries, so books for kids in their classroom at their reading level, for all grades pre-K through 6, which is just, I mean, if you think about, Shelley, how many classrooms is that? Pre-K just through 6 in this entire district? Okay. K6, an average of 15 per grade, so just times 6, so 90. Yep, I was going to say, and then we have, so 90, so I would say well over. And so in addition to all of those we've just mentioned, our 7th grade and 8th grade ELA, they also will be receiving some classroom library books, book sets. Our special ed classrooms, our ELL classrooms, Merrill Hill, RETC. So we are just really outfitting this district with books. And I can tell you that just from an educational standpoint, that these books have not just been sort of selected off of, don't picture that it's like your Scholastic news book order that just kind of came home and a bunch of books were checked off. When Shelley mentioned to me the guru of Laura Robb, she's just one of my educational gurus, that this is the person who has curated these books for the Auburn school system. That is just an amazing resource to have, that she's done this. So I'm thrilled to be able to put all these books in there. Now, from someone who receives thousands of books like this and has to absolutely process them, there's a process for rolling these books out into the classroom so that they are not just dumped boxes of books into classroom teachers' rooms, because that would just be an awful lot to have to go through and get into kids' hands. So there is a process for rolling these books out. There is some money in CRF that's also going towards science content to add to classroom libraries. The other thing to remember too is that any books that are currently in classrooms right now that can potentially be donated will be donated to the Share Center. So we're not just going to take, books aren't just being thrown into the dumpsters. They are going to be sorted through. Those that belong in dumpsters will go in dumpsters. Those that can be donated will be donated. So that was a great thing to know. And I think, at the high school, or actually all the school libraries are going to be receiving some new titles. So in addition to classroom libraries for classrooms, our school libraries will be receiving some titles, and some of it will have audiobook content as well as books, so that we can access, all readers can access their books. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
As far as the content of the books, is there diversity, and especially with what's happening in current events?
Wait. I have the curated list. Hold on.
I just want to make sure that there's a little of...
These are all the titles. These are all the themes. These are all, and when you're talking about that, they're well noted in these. Lots of, yeah.
That was one of the things that we appreciated about entering into this partnership to purchase books from Penguin Random House, is that they have Laura Robb doing the curating for them, and she is doing that with an eye to all of the things you mentioned.
Excellent.
Not just reading levels, but diverse texts.
Thank you.
Yep. The lists are amazing. The book titles lists are amazing. All right. Moving on. Mr. Simpson, Community Learning Center. Oh, okay. Wellness Subcommittee, or anyone else before I go list by list.
Yeah, I have an update, Karen, for technology.
Yep.
Actually, I got quite a few updates. So we met last week, and so from a Pro AV perspective, as of last week, there was only 7 left at the high school. Those are probably done at this point. They were in the basement. I'm looking at Dr. Brown. I don't know if those have been finished or not. The middle school is done. Park Ave and Fairview walkthroughs were last week, and due to their size and proximity, those are the 2 elementary schools that are going to be started first. They may have already been started. Half the laptops that were ordered are in. It sounds like the rest are coming in maybe this week, maybe the next a few days. Asset tags are in, which is good. So they're looking at the process of getting all those deployed once they come in. Let's see. Network Maine is upgrading our connection speed from 1G to 10G, so that'll be good to, with Zoom and Pro AV and all that kind of equipment, the bandwidth, so that'll be good. There was a network vulnerability infrastructure uncovered that Peter, his team, and many others probably are working through a plan. So what happens today is the internet comes the internet comes from the outside into EL. It comes from EL into central office, and then central office out to the schools. So if we lose the internet from the internet to EL, we lose all the schools. If it goes from EL to central office, we lose all the schools. So the plan that they're looking at is to try to figure out how to get the internet from the outside into central office, and then central office out to all the schools, so that if we lose one line, we only lose one school. However, it's also heavily subsidized. And part of the restrictions are it has to go to a school. So there's still, I don't know, Brian, if you have any information on that, but I think they're still trying to figure out how to account for central office as part of the, a school. But that is one piece that is being looked at. I think that's it.
Okay. All right. Any other committees need to report out tonight? All right, let's moving on. Old business. Moving on. Policy ECB, pest management in school facilities and on school grounds. Can I have a motion to approve policy ECB?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Mr. Carrier. Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Any questions, comments, public comment? I don't think there's anyone in the community room. All right. Take the vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. Next policy, EGAD, copyright compliance. Can I entertain a motion to approve policy EGAD? So moved. Thank you,
Second.
Faith. Can I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Carrier. Any public, seeing none public comment. All those in favor? Oh, none opposed, motion passes. All right, moving on. New business. Approval of a school health consultant from Central Maine Pediatric Practice. Can I entertain a motion to approve the school health consultant for Central Maine Pediatric Practice for fiscal year 2021?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Can I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Poisson. Any questions, comments?
What is the role of
Yeah,
this
that's what I was
person?
gonna ask.
Is there a cost associated with it?
Michelle, I'm going to ask you to answer that because you've been the point person for this. This is a statutory requirement, by the way.
Basically, that's, we're meeting a statutory requirement. The school health consultant provides minimal services around bigger issues that relate to health and is a resource to our school health staff, particularly our.
Is this the current provider also?
This is not. This is a new provider. We had a nurse practitioner who was unable to complete and continue with us.
Any other questions?
So Michelle, did we answer the question on cost?
We did. Yes, there is a cost associated. There's a $5,000 for the year consultant.
So is this a physician, a nurse practitioner, PA, a nurse?
I missed your question.
Is this a physician, a physician's assistant, a nurse practitioner?
So the nice thing about this, and this is a new relationship that we have, and I'm very excited about, is that we will have access to whomever we need within that practice.
Oh, okay.
$5,000, that's good.
Right. Was this already budgeted in this fiscal year's budget? Yes, already budgeted for. Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. Next one, policy BEDH, public participation at school committee meetings. Can I entertain a motion to approve policy BEDH, public participation at school committee meetings for a first reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carrier. Can I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Questions, comments?
There's been some chatter about.
You got to talk right into the mic. Yeah, thank
Hello.
you.
There's been some chatter about accessibility to meetings, city council, school committee, as far as, especially when COVID was, we were kind of stuck doing Zoom meetings and people needed a link to come in and stuff. And I think that some people still feel that there's an inaccessibility to the public participation. And so I was wondering how we can make it known, because there shouldn't be. I mean, we have the capability, we have people right here, we have the room, but I don't know if that is well known, I guess, because that's what I'm hearing, is that there is a, that kind of concern. So I just want to make sure that everybody does know that they are able to come to these meetings. They just can't come into the room, but they can come into the other room and we can hear them. And it's very similar to what we used to do pre-COVID.
Okay, so how can we get word out? How can we get communication out that this community room is available, that you can come speak to a podium? And you can also, if you can't come in person, you can also send an email to any school committee member as well. I think we want to make sure, thank you for bringing that up, Pam. We want to make sure you do have accessibility to these meetings. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, let's take a vote. All those in favor of passing policy BEDH, public participation? Motion passes. Thank you. Policy B, let me put my glasses back on. PEDB, school committee meeting agenda. Motion to approve policy BEDB for first reading. Can I entertain a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Mr. Belknap. Thank you, Mr. Carrier. Any questions or comments regarding this policy? Seeing none, take a vote, please. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. Policy BEDB-R, school committee meeting agenda format. A motion to approve policy BEDB-R, school committee agenda format for adoption. Can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Any questions, comments?
We like this format?
We changed it recently, haven't we?
We just moved a few things. Yeah, just moved a few things around.
There was discussion at one point about amending it paper, but
Yeah, I think it's, and I want to say it's in, I don't have my binder. See, I didn't bring my second binder tonight. It's in my second binder tonight. That the format, if we want to change, this is the opportunity to kind of mix things.
I thought we had some thoughts at one point.
Yeah, condensing some things. I know it's, at one point we may, there was some discussion about taking the standing committees that sit all the time like this and how to rearrange them on there. Yeah, but that will require a vote from you, a motion and a vote from you, from all of us, sorry. So right now, the agenda format stands for adoption. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. Next one, policy BBBAA, student representatives to the school committee. A motion to approve policy BBBA, student reps to the school committee for a first reading.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Pam. Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Any questions or comments regarding this one? All right, seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. Policy BBBA-R, the rules for selection of the student rep to the school committee. Can I entertain a motion for policy BBBAA-R?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carrier. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Any questions or comments on that one? I think the comment right now, they're searching right now. Are you searching right now, Mr. Anir? Yes. All right, thank you.
So I saw something in here. Is there like an application they fill out and stuff? Okay, and who decides? Is it you that decides who comes? No, I'm just curious.
That was some of the modifications that we did around that. Like, admin is guiding the process, supporting the process, facilitating the process, that kind of thing. But ultimately, it will be students who are selecting the student rep.
Okay.
And then we're just kind of like facilitating and supporting that process, and then it will come to the chair and the superintendent to, vet that out and have an interview and go there. But the really big change there was they came to us, applicants, and then we shifted them to that last step. Now the students will have an opportunity, and we're using, normally we have our student leadership group, and the leadership group of that are the executive boards for each of the classes, so those executive boards will be the ones that will do that, and if you were treasurer and you were up for that, you're recused from that, so it allows for students to have an impact on who they're selecting. Helpful.
Can I make just a suggestion, and you guys can tell me if you don't think it's a good idea, but I love having a student here. I think it's super important. But I also think that it would be nice if we had students for a certain amount of time so we could have more students kind of experience it instead of having one student the whole year or the whole time. I don't, I know that at one point we had a student like multiple years, and I just feel like there are a lot of students. It would be a nice opportunity for multiple students as opposed to just one student doing it the whole time. I mean, I liked how they had two recently. We had two students. That was nice. And then they could kind of help each other too. If one couldn't make it, the other one could. I think that's a great idea, having two. But I was wondering if we could do it so that there'd just be more
So
opportunity.
the plan is to move ahead having two, and that if we reach a point in time where one of them can't, that there's an alternate that's selected. But we want to fill those two.
Yep.
And oftentimes in the past, we try to select a junior, but they still would need to kind of go back through the application process, just in terms of having some continuity. And it's open from, we're looking for grades 10, 11, and 12. We do have a pretty strong applicant pool in terms of numbers. It's easy, I think that all of the applicants are going to be outstanding, but it's a much larger pool than we've had in quite some time.
So that would be, if they did for 3 months or 4 months, then we would be able to utilize a lot more of those kids rather than always just using the same two. I guess that's my,
I see your suggestion there. Yep.
that's just a,
Any other questions or comments?
Historically, we haven't had a huge number of applicants, correct?
Correct.
We had to really try to find somebody that would be willing to do it, just to speak
Yeah.
in. I think that's a great suggestion, but in the past, we've had to really go look for somebody that would want to do it. It's a big commitment
yeah. But
with
if,
sports and
well,
academics.
and I agree. And I think if we did it for a shorter time, then it wouldn't be as big a commitment for a kid, especially if they, well, God forbid, I know the whole sports thing is up in the air right now, but if they played basketball, for instance, okay, well, the fall, the winter would not be a good time for them. But it might be good for the kid that plays soccer, like something like that, especially if we have more. The more we get interested into this, the more hopefully it'll build, I guess. But I see where you're coming from, is that there wasn't many.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, let's bring us to a vote, please. All those in favor of policy BBBA AA-R? Motion passes. Thank you. Policy BBBA AA-E, the student membership application. Can I entertain a motion to approve BBB AA-E, the Auburn School Committee student membership application for adoption? Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Simpson. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Questions, comments? Seeing none, let's take a vote, please. All those in favor of policy BBB AA-E? Thank you. Motion passes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, can I entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405D for the purpose of negotiations between public employer and public employees?
so moved.
Second.
Thank you, I heard Mr. Carey over here, Mr. Belknap as a second. I'm got it. All right. All those in favor to enter into executive session? The motion passes. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening, 7:34. Can I ask that the last one out who will not be staying shut that door for me, please? Thank you.